Hey guys, what's up? Ricky Semiglia here, Maddox Academy, and my guy Justin over here. We're going to be covering the technique of the day pretty much. So today what I'm going to be covering is the RNC, rear naked choke, right? So I'm going to talk about how to make your rear naked choke just a little bit more efficient, because I always see people sometimes, especially in competition, the younger belts, they always try to use a lot of muscle and they spaz out when they have the neck, and they actually end up losing it because of that muscle. So I just want to talk of a way to make the rear naked choke just a little bit more efficient, right? So this is going to be, cut that out. So first things first, when it comes to back control, I think personally the most important detail of back control is that my chest is connected to his back, right? So whenever I'm grappling, everything that I do as far as hooks and seatbelt grip and everything, the purpose is to keep his back connected to my chest. Just as much. You don't have to squeeze so much where you're shaking, but just closing the gap between his back and your chest. So that way, if he decides to disconnect his back, anywhere he moves, he's gonna be taking me. So I know which way to lean and everything like that. So when it comes to rear naked choke, right, I was always kind of like, not confused, but I always hear you always want to choke on the choker side, right? So you're here and you're choking, and then, but I do believe if you manage to grab the full rear naked choke, then no matter what, you can finish on either side. But we're just gonna talk about why the choker side, to me, I guess, is a little bit more efficient, right? So from here, when I'm grabbing over with the choke, let's just do it with one hand so we can kind of see this idea about the back connection, is if I start leaning against the choker side, and I lean this way, I'm gonna move my arm just so you guys can see. There's gonna be kind of a gap between his chest, his back and my chest. So for him to put his back on the ground is gonna be easy. And if he puts his back on the ground, I'm not gonna be choking anything. So from here, if I were to move him to the other side, if I lean towards the choker side, you'll notice that my arm kind of creates a structure where it makes it hard for him to flatten his back out. So if you try to flatten his back out, he wouldn't have much chance, which gives me a lot more time to start sinking in the second choke. Now, before we move on to the actual technique, I do want you guys to see something here. If I were to choke and I didn't have any hooks, right, he's always gonna be able to put his back on the floor. So although I'm not gonna say it's impossible to get the choke like this, it's a lot more effective if you are using your hooks and the rest of your body. So if I start choking and just squeezing with my arms and he's not letting me, it's not gonna be an easy task. And then if I start using the rest of my body, he's gonna end up using my muscle to flatten out. And now we just start to create a scramble, which is not a good thing. So I'm gonna talk about using the hooks efficiently so we can get the choke. So another important comment before we do move on to the full technique is the hooks, right? So if I'm leaning towards the choker side, not only is my choking arm preventing him from flattening his back out, but it's also my bottom hook. So I notice that sometimes when people go for chokes, they start going so crazy and they start squeezing. But anytime I use muscle, he's gonna be able to remove the hooks because I'm stiffening up my hooks, and it becomes real easy for him to flatten his back out. So what I want you guys to do if you're trying this, and of course be careful with each other because we're choking, but what I want you guys to do is just to close the rear naked choke, lean towards the choker side, and only pay attention to your hooks. So he's always trying to remove the bottom hook, right? Because that's the only way he's gonna be able to flatten himself out. If he went back, if I just remove the top hook, he's still not gonna be able to flatten himself out. So it's not a terrible thing for me. But he's gonna try removing this one, and I'm just gonna loosen up my hooks. So if he tries to remove the bottom hook, I'm just misguiding it with my other foot, right? And then at some point, a lot of times they get desperate and they try really hard to remove that hook, and it's that muscle that's gonna allow me to extend my hips. And once I start to extend my hips, there's where the choke actually happens. So talking about all of those details are really important, because the actual finish of a choke really is the extent of a rear naked choke, and a lot of other chokes too, is the extension of the hip. It's not so much that I can squeeze really hard with my arms. And it's a big misconception. It's honestly, anybody will make it in the beginning. You think you have to use your muscle and squeeze, but the more I try to use muscle and squeeze, the more I have to stiffen up my hooks. So if I go ahead and I'm squeezing here with all the muscle in the world, he doesn't even have to use his left foot. He can just shake his bottom leg, and your right foot will end up coming out because I'm so focused on that hook. So instead of me trying to focus on squeezing his neck, my main focus is actually trying to extend his body. So as I start leaning towards the rear naked choke side, I'm thinking about my chest connected to his back. Everything's keeping it tight, and then the rest is me bringing my hips forward. And when I bring my hips forward, that choke is going to be a lot more efficient, a lot more secure that you're gonna get it, and really hard for him to escape pretty much. If he keeps himself in a very fetal position kind of here, and he doesn't want me to extend his hips, he can make it impossible, right? So if I try to extend my hips, he can make it impossible. From there, you can start squeezing, and then you'll notice as you squeeze, he's gonna loosen up. But once he loosens up, I'd rather take the extension of my hip than the actual muscle of my arm to finish the choke, because I think you'll get a lot more energy, more probability that technique will finish, and then just a more gas tank pretty much, right? So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you, Justin. And then I'm gonna be posting a video every day this week.